Hi, welcome to CMVG's review of Deus Ex The Fall. I'm Tim Weaver. I'm here with our reviewer Andy Kelly. Hello, Andy.
Hello.
So tell us about Deus Ex The Fall. I guess, Andy, people will want to know how it compares to Human Revolution and whether it's worth the money.
Well, this is $4.99 on iOS. An Android version is planned apparently, but it's not out yet. So it is set before the events of Human Revolution. Adam Jensen is nowhere to be found. You play as a new fella called Ben Saxon, who's an Englishman. You couldn't have guessed that from his name, Ben Saxon.
That's a great name for an Englishman.
And he looks a bit like Jean Reno, and he is an augmented mercenary who finds himself working for the tyrants, who anyone that's played Human Revolution will know were the bosses, the much
maligned
boss battles. So it's a new story, and it's a whole new city hub, which is cool. So you've got Panama City, which is in Human Revolution you had Hengsha, and then Detroit. Here you've got Panama City, and it's a big old chunk of city full of, you know, back alleys, NPCs, side missions. So it's a proper little chunk of Deus Ex, which is really impressive because I was expecting like a shooting gallery with some gold-coloured assets, you know.
Yeah, because people would be looking at this video now and thinking, actually, you know what, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, so it uses the same mechanics as the Human Revolution. It's got the augmentations, weapon customization, the enemy AI is similar. There's a couple of little differences, like bodies disappear when you take enemies out, which is obviously to save memory on the mobile platform, but it does mean that enemies can't see bodies flying around, which changes the stealth dynamic slightly. But it feels like the same game.
So it feels and looks like the same game. How does it control? That's the issue, isn't it, with iOS gaming?
Yeah.
iOS gaming.
Yeah, that's the key problem with this. The touchscreen controls are bad. When you're playing Deus Ex and you're trying to be stealthy, there's a certain element of finesse required. The touchscreen controls are really clumsy, twitchy, and it doesn't feel fun to play on a mechanical level.
Right.
When you get into a firefight, it's really hard to, you know, just simply aiming at and shooting a guy is hard because of the lock-ons quite unreliable, and it just feels clumsy and awkward, which is a real shame because the actual content, if you were playing it with a controller or a mouse and keyboard, it would be a really great little Deus Ex DLC.
And I guess the problem is that in a game where you can either choose to go in loud or you can choose to go in quiet, and a lot of people do love that sort of quiet side of it, the sort of imprecise controls don't really play into that.
That's really the problem, because if you go stealthy, you're going to be stumbling into your enemy's line of sight because of the weird cover system. Or if you go guns blazing, you're going to have really long firefights because you're going to be, you know, because the aiming is so hard to aim at someone. So you do get used to it eventually, but then by the point where you get used to it, the game is over. There's about 5 hours here, which for a $5 I think is decent, and it will take you far less time if you choose to ignore the side missions, of which there are many. But what's interesting is when Human Revolution was being promoted, I interviewed some of the developers, and they said that a city hub was dropped from Human Revolution, so I wonder if Panama City was that dropped hub. It might not have been, but it does feel big and packed. 3 areas. There's like a sort of slum full of gangs and ne'er-do-wells. There's like a downtown area with skyscrapers and a limb clinic, which you'll know from the main game, and there's like a boardwalk with like the token Deus Ex futuristic nightclub.
Right, okay.
So there's a lot to do. There's fully voiced NPCs, and although the voice acting is terrible because it's set in, you know, Panama, and you've got some of the worst accents you've ever heard. Like Deus Ex had its fair share of terrible accents, but the voice acting in this of the NPCs is pretty terrible. But generally, the story and the main thrust of the plot, Ben Saxon's story, is pretty good. You know, it's pretty decent, and it fleshes out the tyrants a little bit, who in Human Revolution were just these like faceless bosses that you killed. So, you know, as an extension of Human Revolution, it's decent, but I sort of wish it was DLC for console or PC, because the touchscreen controls really don't do it justice.